Oh my gosh, the first sip. All right, I think we're live. I think we might be live. Let's just make sure. Let's give it a hot second. It looks like it's doing its thing. All right, it's official. I think it's live. All right, Sarah Olson. Okay, you guys, everybody, this interview this morning is already an adventure, which is what makes it so fun. And I'm so glad. So I live in the Eastern time zone. Sarah lives in Central. And so we just got a little time zone confusion. And everyone in this group, I'm sure, has experienced that if they're doing any sort of communication around the world. So, like, no worries at all. And I'm just so glad. I actually have to hop off like immediately at 10. So I'm going to just jump right into this because I have a private lesson right after and I don't want to be late for that little one. And I also know that we are going to get through so much. So, Sarah, what I want to say about you before I let you speak is that Sarah is extremely creative and extremely talented. Okay, just like a few things that I know. She is a very proficient and beautiful writer. She is a dancer. She is a person of many languages. She is an artist. I believe you play the piano, right?
Guitar.
Okay, guitar. I was like, I know you play an instrument. Okay, so you guys, Sarah is a jack of many trades or a Jill of many trades. And so, Sarah, would you like to tell everybody where you are in the world before we dive into some beautiful questions?
Sure. I'm in the tiny town of Granbury, Texas, which is the top historic small town in the country.
Really?
hmm Look
I
it up.
That's so okay. I just learned something and it's only been like a minute. I'm telling you, this interview is gonna be good. Okay. So that's really cool. And also going to lead perfectly into my first thing I want to talk about that Sarah and I relate on is homeschooling our children. And I want to share this part because homeschooling is not the norm. It's becoming more and more of the norm, which is awesome, but it is definitely not the go-to normal routine. And so I would love to know, Sarah, right off the bat, what inspired you to homeschool your children?
Ooh. Well, I have a master's degree in Christian school education, so I knew I was capable of homeschooling my children with maybe a little bit more ease than the average gal. Um, but also, I wanted to be actively involved in my children's life from, birth to death, essentially. Well, however you want to put it. Like, I want to be actively involved in my kids' life. So for me, homeschooling gives me the opportunity to be present and to be the person that gets to speak into the growth of my children and to be the strongest voice in their life um, as they grow. The values that I am able to impart upon them will hopefully be the voice that they hear when they need some courage or any other character trait that needs to come upon them, that maybe they can hear mama's voice in the back of their head, like I do, at least.
And can I ask you, and you can be like, give me a look if you're like, I don't want to go there, Ashley, but I know you lost your mom a few years back. And
Yeah.
would you the death of your mother had something to do with that decision, or did you already always know you wanted to homeschool?
It certainly made it more more on the forefront of my mind for sure. My mother is definitely a huge part of how I teach. Her spirit is with me for sure. I hear her every day, most times when I'm teaching. And the way I choose to teach was how my mom taught me. And as I continue to learn how to teach, I am seeing that more and more, which is scary and beautiful all at the same time.
Isn't it crazy? I'm sure we can all relate. Like you open mouth and insert your mother, and you're like, "Well, I didn't mean that." Sounded immediately like you get a flashback, right? Oh,
Yes, absolutely.
I love that. I love that. Now, would you say that your kids are younger? You want to tell everybody the ages of your children?
Yeah, I have a 2-year-old, a 6-year-old, and an 8-year-old.
So at the 8-year-old age, right? You might see it more than the little lady in there. But would you say that you can already see that homeschooling is having a family dynamic shift? Like it makes your family different or maybe even extraordinary because of the homeschooling? Would you say that there's power to that?
There was 100% power to it. I think that our family is a much tighter unit. My son and daughter are best friends. My two olders, they are super tight. You pretty much can't see them away from each other. They don't want to be away from each other. And I think people think that that is not normal. I think that they think that's maybe strange. Personally, I think that family should be your tightest unit in your life. My brother and I are best friends. When we call each other, we talk for 4 or 5 hours. So I have that in my own life, and I want that for my children. And I teach that to them regularly when they get on each other's nerves or they speak unkindly. I'm like, hey, remember, you're developing a relationship into adulthood. Do you want it to be a strong relationship, or do you want to already create rifts in your relationship? So consider that when you speak to each other, how you love each other, how you serve each other, because it's very important for the remainder of your life. You're living life right now.
Yeah, and I know that as well. I have three, and of course, not everybody's perfect. I lose it sometimes, right? And so I love personally what you're saying. I love that my girls are like uber sad when brother's not around. They're like, "Where's brother? Bro, when is he coming home?" I'm like, "You guys, he goes to soccer every Tuesday. He's home at the same time. It's okay." Like they're so close. And I would say that that is such a superpower for them growing up because they're going to always have each other.
Yeah.
Hopefully, life happens. So like life happens, it is what it is, and we don't have control after they're adults anyways. But the best foundation, I think, is where you and I can relate with homeschooling being such a foundation in the family. And I just love it. And so of course I relate to everything. But I would love for you to share, because you are so creative, Sarah. I would love for you to share how you bring some of Sarah's creativity into your homeschooling approach, but also I know you're phenomenal about encouraging your children with their creativity. So I would love to know, the word creative or creativity is part of, my dance framework. So that word means a lot to me, but how do you use creativity and how do you create inside of your homeschool approach? Because a lot of people watching this may not homeschool, may never homeschool, may never even want to homeschool. So we're not necessarily trying to sell homeschooling, but I think it's important to highlight for people that you can create whatever you want. And so how do you use creativity in your homeschooling, Sarah?
It's a collaborative effort for sure. I have always, part of my definition of creativity is collaboration. If you were to ask me what is your definition of creativity, which you just did, uh, there's a huge portion of it's collaboration, encouragement, seeing gifts where they lie and allowing them to grow, but also in encouraging areas that need growth, doing it with love and intentionality.
Love that.
Is that does that kind of is that too,
Yeah.
or does that?
No, I mean, that's beautiful because it's not we do an art project and we just do it in this one way, or it's not oh, we all play the guitar or we all do this thing. It's not a creativity as in a specific thing. It's that I love when you said seeing gifts, and it is noticing. It's really seeing it in the everyday. And one day one kid may be in a mood where she's wearing bright colors all day, and then the other kid is wearing black all day, and you're like, already you can see the creativity coming out in what they chose to wear. And so you as mom, and when we are tuned in to seeing and noticing this stuff, it becomes a magical journey because it doesn't matter what you have planned. It doesn't matter what's on the agenda. When you live with children, life is amplified, excuse me, and magnified limitlessly. Children are phenomenal.
Yeah, I love what you said. They're a mindful journey. That is such a perfect, I think, a perfect definition of homeschool, at least for those who are the teacher. It's a mindful journey.
Yes, yes, and it's something that it gives so much more than you can ever realize before you sign up for it. It's like you know what you're doing, you think you know what's going to happen. You have no idea. You have no idea. So I think it's and I still have no idea. My oldest is 12, and I'm like, gosh, what are the teen years going to bring? Oh my goodness, it's
Yeah.
amazing and slightly nerve-wracking, but it's okay. It's all good. But I want to shift into, because I don't want to run out of time. I want to shift into dance as an adult, because you and we have connected through dance.
Mhm.
Met you about a year ago online, which is so fun when you meet incredible people online and they become friends, like so much so that you get gifts from them that are like felt and loved. And this, yes, sits on my desk right in front of me. And so what drew you, Sarah, to dance as an adult? Because that takes a lot of courage. A lot of adults don't just jump into a dance class, but you jumped into an in-person studio before I ever met you. You were already in person taking classes, and you live in a small town, which means inevitably everybody knows everybody or knows of people. And so it's not like you were in a big city where you can hide and go take a class and no one's going to know you. What brought you into that? Because it's so powerful and bold.
It's really funny that you say that because at church, I'm known as the girl who twirls.
Love
Like
it.
people don't they don't know my name. They just know I'm the girl who twirls.
Love it.
But anyway, I took my children to dance, and watching them unlock their potential in dance and seeing their eyes light up and the joy that embodied them as they danced and moved, it it unlocked in me a deep wound that I had received as a 12-year-old dancer, where I was basically told, you can't do this. You don't have the right body type. You don't have the rhythm, all these things. And for me, as I was watching my kids dance, it was like there was this stitching of that wound happening as I watched my children dance. And I think the last stitch required action. And it was, no, that's not my identity. That doesn't stay. I choose to change that. I choose to go with what I know to be true of myself. I'm a mover. I'm a shaker. I like to do these things. I'm going to jump in and I'm going to do it. And my kids, they were like, sure. They loved that mom danced at the studio, and it became this thing. And funny enough, there was actually a season where I was the only one dancing. And my kids went to my showcase where I did 4 or 5 different dances and they watched from the stands with dad. So that was a really surreal moment to be the only one on stage, to not have my kids backstage with me. And it was all me doing all the dances. That was, I don't know, it was pretty incredible.
That is really incredible. And for somebody who's grown up in dance and knows the adrenaline of being backstage before you even get on stage, and then the feeling of when you're on stage and the music hasn't started yet, and then you're wearing the costume that's maybe not your favorite thing to be wearing, but you're on the stage and you're playing the part. And there's a lot of layers to what you just said. Like, I actually kind of felt like my eyes were tearing up there, Sarah, and that doesn't happen to me often. So thank you. When you said the last stitch, and can we already I'm going to ask Sarah about her writing and all of that next, but just notice Sarah's words. She is a wordsmith. One time you used that verb in something I was doing, and I was like, no way, lady, you've got this. Like, the way you just share things, it's poetry when you speak. It's so beautiful. And that's why you love dance, probably, because it's poetry in motion. And it's just, but the beauty of watching your children, and it's probably the power of it being that it was your children. You could watch anybody else dance in the world and it would not have had that same impact as watching your own child, the one that you birthed, right? Mm-hmm. Out there enjoying dance and loving it and carefree and moving, and this freedom of what dance brings and this escape of what dance brings. And when you watch your child, it's in that moment what I heard from you, Sarah, and I want every parent in the world to remember this. As our children, as much as we're leading and we're doing our dang best to lead, right? By example, by morals, by values, all these things, our children are teaching us every single day. And so it was your child reflecting that leadership back on you in that moment. That's what I heard in that story. And it's just so beautiful because, we always want things in our time. We think, oh, well, we're going to do this and it's going to happen and it's going to work. And this is what I want. It's not really about what you want. And as much as it stinks that maybe you had a teacher that maybe didn't love working with children as much as maybe some do, to say something like that to you when you were a kid, it created so much strength in you and resilience and persistence and determination that came out at this said time when you started. And it came out, in my perspective of this story, at such a perfect time. Because you get to come into it and lead as a beginner for your kids. Like, I'm going to start this. And I think it's so much more powerful for women to lead our children as a beginner than an expert. because they get to see the whole journey then. They don't get to see the end when you've put in all the reps before they were born and now you're like a hot shot doing XYZ. That's, I mean, that's cool. Please keep following your passions. But I think there's so much power in leading as a beginner. That's why I don't play tennis. I've never played tennis in my life, but my kids play tennis. And I'm like, hey guys, can you teach me? And I do think it's a really fun sport, but they get to see me be like the worst one on the court out of the family versus if we're all dancing together, I'm the leader. So I think it's really important to find something where you can be a beginner. And all of that was like jumping out as you were sharing that story, Sarah. It's so beautiful. And I know when you're practicing, sometimes you and Aspen, your older daughter, you guys get to practice together, which is, imagine that, you guys practicing alongside your child at something that you both are trying to improve on. Not that you have better and you're just practicing to do the reps with her and encourage her. You're doing it together. Yeah. It's so, so beautiful. Okay, I'm going to ask one more deep question about dance, and then I want to move into your writing. Okay, I'm going to read my note, because if I say this in my own world, it's going to take forever. What have you learned about yourself through dance? And yeah, through dance. And how has that impacted other areas of your life? Like, how do you see dance paralleling in other areas, or how has it shaped Sarah as the amazing woman that you are right now?
You and I both talk about how important it is to be a constant learner in life. I think I had reached a point, because I had gotten my master's degree, I had written my thesis. I think I had reached a point where learning kind of became blah for me. And so dance reopened that, or awakened that desire to understand myself and grow and learn something and struggle, because the struggle is so important to the growth and to the just being able to function in life on a higher frequency, on a higher level. It's what gets us there. And so I think the greatest thing I've learned about myself is I am allowed to take up the space that I was created to take up.
Oh my gosh, say that again, because everyone needs to hear that.
I am allowed to take up the space that I was created to take up.
And in dance, right, we're physically taking up space. We're moving, we're doing things. But also, if you put the element of tap dance in there, we get to speak what we want to as well. So we get to take up the space and we get to be loud and be heard. And that is the epitome of this whole group. It's Extraordinary Network, but it's a visibility challenge that we're working on, bringing people on the screen, making them more visible. And that's exactly it, Sarah. And it's, everybody's going to do it in your own way. But man, dance is like, it forces you into the list of the driver's seat. And in 5, 6, 7, 8, go. It doesn't matter what it looked like, go. It's your turn to go across the floor. You just walked, you didn't know, that's your own fault. Walk, go.
If you only saw me go across the floor multiple times, that did exactly. I'm like, oh, I gotta go now. Okay.
And then next thing you know, you've perfected the right side, and you're like, okay, left side, 5. You're like, what? I was on the top of the mountain, and you just kicked me back off. I have no idea what's happening. Why did we have to, And it's funny, and we're laughing, right? We can smile and we can laugh about it, because in dance, there's this element of joy always. Even when it's hard, it's still like, I'm here because I love it. I mean, yeah, it's just, oh, I love it. Okay, I want to jump in because I don't want to run out of time. That conversation alone could last an hour. I want to move into your writing, because Sarah, I know you are dreaming and creating right now your own book. And I would love for you to tell people what story or message most excites you that you want to share with the world, like via your book. You also have a blog. What's the story and message you get so pumped up to share?
My children are knocking on the door. They finally have awakened. So sorry if you hear knocks in the bed. Sorry, and actually, could you, the story that is awakened in my spirit right now, is that what you asked?
Yeah, essentially, yeah. What's the story or the message that it is that you're wanting, that you're so excited, you're so fueled to share, whether it be in this book that you're writing, or right now, even in your blog, like you're currently doing it. But what is that message, Sarah, that you can't wait to bring bigger?
I have a heart for connection. I love to connect people, and I love to see people light up when they find commonality. And this current book that has sort of been birthed in me is about spiritual motherhood. And Ashley, you've touched on it, that my mother passed away in January of 2018. That left a hole. But what I realized is there are people in my life who embody my mother in different ways, whether it be her joy, her love of learning, her ability to encourage, just the light she leaves in the world, her laughter. There's multiple things. I'm gonna have to pause for just 1 second. Children, give me just a moment, please. I'm almost done talking.
They're like, I'm not going to stop. They're relentless until you
Yeah.
hear me. I love it.
Yeah. And so it kind of, since I have this desire for connection, and I think everyone in this world desires connection. Hello, why are we in this group? You know, my heart's desire, and I have this vision of what spiritual motherhood looks like. And I've asked, people in my life, I have my own definition. My intent is for everyone to understand they have an impact in someone's life, whether it be someone directly related to them or someone not directly related to them. I have said more than once, Ashley, you embody my mother in ways. When you and I communicate, you are one of those people for me, and there are others. And I think it's important to have an awareness of that type of energy and that type of just being able to see people and share that connection, and then have the last part of it is going to talk about how to create that connection and grow that connection and let it flourish so that they can flourish and you can, so that the world can flourish through connection, because women have power. And I think a lot of times we're shrunk down, but it's through stuff like what you and I are doing. It's through the last year of me collaborating with you and you pouring into me that I am a very, very different person than I was in January of 2024. You asked that question in our group and you saw me. Like, I couldn't even keep myself together if I tried, because of connection, because of courage, and because of collaboration. So 3 C's: connection, courage, collaboration.
I love it. My gosh, Sarah, this is why I was like, I can't wait to have this interview, and I want to have an hour, but we don't have an hour. Desire connection is, yes, it's a human trait, right? We all have that. Everybody wants connection, but not everybody has the right people in their life and so they feel like, oh, maybe I just want to live alone, or I want to be alone. None of these people are my people, right? And so, yeah, I love that community connection. It's so powerful. And you said, I was hoping you would say spiritual motherhood, because that's a question you've asked me. What is spiritual motherhood to me? And I've answered you in that regard. But when you speak about your mother, Sarah, and you say you see your mom and other people in your life right now, I think that the magnitude of that statement is so profound, because I think that so many of us just get so busy going through life that we don't notice these little tiny nuances of personality or mannerisms, or even a single word that, like, I joked in our coaching call this week, but my mom says wash instead of wash. And if I know it's as cringe as it is, like, my mom's from Arkansas and just has never shook. I don't understand it. But it's a word that I picked on and laughed with my mom since I was I don't know, 7. I remember the whole time, Mom, you gonna do the wash? Like, she'd be like, stop it, Ashley. And so forever, for the rest of my life, if I ever hear anybody say that word ever, I will immediately think of my mom. It doesn't matter if she's here or gone. And so there's little things like that, right, that we can see and laugh about. But the way you see it and the way you value it is so much bigger than just that one tiny little nuance. And it makes life so beautiful when you dance through life in this way, with this sort of eye-opened, awakened state. And of course, there's spiritual in that. There's, if you want to, for those that are religious, there's, whatever you believe, it doesn't matter. It's just so beautiful the way that you allow all of you into your writing and all of you into your dancing. And you're always open for all of what's to come. It's like this and what's next. And it's not a but or a period. It's like a constant comma with you. Like, what's next? What's next? And the comma I say specifically too, because it's like you do pause. You do pause. You don't rush. It's a thought and a comma. What's to come? Like a dot, dot, dot. Like I can just, that's how I feel like you go through life, Sarah. And it's so beautiful and so refreshing. And so one last thing I want to say before we close it out is, what does an extraordinary life mean to you, Sarah? And how do you embody that extraordinary living every single day? You just touched on it a little bit, but I would love to hear. Every day you embody this, and embodiment is movement, it's dancing, it is everything. But how do you do that?
Awareness.
Yeah,
I could expound, but honestly, that's it.
I love it. So good. So good. Boom. And that's all that it needs to be. I love that we can just end with one word, because why do we have to make it so much harder than what it really is? It doesn't have to be any harder in life. We don't want, none of us desire dread and heavy and full and this whole like textbook that's like, this big to figure out the manual of life. There isn't one. But if there was, imagine how big it would be, right? It would be this endless thing of pages. But what if it could just be like a pamphlet and it was like love, awareness, joy, like it's just all those high vibe things. So gosh, it's a perfect ending. This interview has gone exactly how it was supposed to. A little bit delayed, kids knocking on the door. By the way, right after your children came in, one of mine came into the door and opened, like, you're supposed to be downstairs. Why aren't you downstairs? Your students here. So like the kids, they've got our backs. You guys, if you are looking to connect with somebody who cares deeply, who speaks French, who can communicate in other ways, who will encourage you beyond what you can even imagine, Sarah is your woman. I invited Sarah into this group, not as an entrepreneur, not as any of that, but just as a woman seeing another woman who is truly extraordinary. So please follow Sarah online. She is all about community. She will lift you up and she will speak to you, to your heart. So it's not fluff. She'll challenge you. And that's what I love so much. So, all right, everybody have a beautiful day. Sarah, thank you so, so much for your time.
Ashley, thank you. I really appreciate it.
Enjoy the rest of your day with those kiddos.
Likewise.
All right. Bye.
Bye.